All right, everybody, yeah, if you just kind of come in, have a seat, we're going to get started.
Feel free to bring sandwiches over, they look good.
All right, how's everybody doing?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Yes, okay, so I'm sure some more people will trickle in as we get started, but welcome to Hollywood WordPress. My name is Greg Douglas. This is Greg Madore over here.
Hi, everyone.
We are the co-organizers of this meetup group. There's a lot of meetup groups that meet around the world. The world's a big place, you guys. But in LA, there's something like 20 meetup groups. If you don't live in this immediate area and you're looking for a WordPress meetup that's closer to you, you can probably find one if you just go on the meetup site and just like type in your location. So, you know, check those meetup groups out.
And WordPress, don't forget that one.
The WordPress meetup groups. That's true. Yeah, I mean, you can find meetup groups in all different subjects. I do want to first start off by thanking WeWork for this awesome location. Those of you that have been here before, you know that this is really cool. They're very generous, allowing us to use this space. And for those of you that are new and don't know, they offer our meetup group a special deal. So if you are in this area, you're looking for a co-working space where you'd like to maybe even get one of these hot desks, or you have needs for you and your co-workers to have more like secluded space, they have all different options down here, and then also some floors up above us. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, a co-working space, see me after the meetup group, and then I'll connect you with the people here at WeWork that can help you get integrated. I want to quickly mention a couple of cool sponsors. For those of you that don't know, back there's like a swag table happening. So feel free to go back there, grab some socks, grab a notepad. You know, it's a really good situation because you can wear the t-shirt with the socks and write in the notepad all at the same time. There's just a lot of opportunities and options that are available to you.
Not much for the lower end.
That's true. We have not made the segue into underwear yet, which is next.
I'm sure someone.
Sweatpants.
Yeah.
Sweatbands and underwear. That's it's on my to-do list. I'll find some sponsor that's up for that. So the swag is some of the swag was donated by Automatic. Andrew, is that right? Bluehost. Did they provide those t-shirts back there? Okay, Bluehost provided the t-shirts back there. The socks are provided by SiteGround, and also the notepads are SiteGround as well. I do want to say something really quick about SiteGround. I recently started, I have a couple of websites that I'm hosting with them now. I've been doing it for about 6 months. And really great hosting. Super good. If you guys are looking for, speak up. Speed up.
Speed it up. Speed it up.
So SiteGround speeds up the performance.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you were trying to tell me. Yeah, I didn't need this. You're talking too slowly. We are not getting the information fast enough. Our brains can listen faster than you're talking. The SiteGround's really great hosting. Just recently, I was doing something where we were migrating a site from another host over to them. They were really helpful. So if you're looking for really solid WordPress hosting, SiteGround is killer. And you can follow the link from our meetup page. And that is like an affiliate link, so it's just good for all of us if you use that link when you sign up. The food tonight, how many people here have had a sub already? Good. I'm glad. For those of you that have not had a sub yet, please head back to this table back here. We've got vegetarian wraps, we've got regular wraps, and we've got sandwiches. And those are all provided this evening by WP All Import owner SoFly. Right over here's Louis Reingold. Now, there is something that just happened today. Louis almost did not make it here tonight, because his latest version of WP All Import just launched today.
Congratulations.
The website is also new. So
Yeah,
WPAllimport.com.
New product, you guys need to import. If you guys have data in any XML or CSV file, any format, any database, and you can get it into WordPress, whether that's custom post type, WooCommerce, advanced custom fields, anything, come see me. I'll give you a free copy of WPL Import, and it's awesome. We'll get the job done for you. So thanks very much.
Yeah, something like more than 7,000 users are a customer, and he's got a lot of raving fans. So WP All Import, it's the real deal. Okay, so head back, get a sandwich. Also, I just want to say really quick, compliments of WeWork is this beer keg right over here. So for those of you that didn't know, we have free beer on tap. Feel free at any time. Cruise over there. This is Andrew Bela. He's going to plug a couple of upcoming meetups.
Hey, it doesn't get any better than this. There's free food, free beer. These guys are putting it on, right? Give it up for the two Gregs. Come on. Just real quick, we have a meetup for WooCommerce. We had our first meetup here with the group, the Hollywood group last month, and it turned out really well. And this is going to be a special meetup. There's going to be 3 members of the Woo Themes team coming. So we have the product manager coming, Matt Jolie, and we have the business development manager, Joe Bronkowski, and their social media expert, Marina Pate. So they're all going to speak. So this is going to be like a mini Woo summit. I just came back from the Woo conference and it was really amazing. And so that's coming, and there's going to be food. So that's going to be 2 to 4 this Saturday at OPODs. Just go to the meetup page for WooCommerce Los Angeles. And then next Wednesday we have a meetup in Topanga. We're going to have I'm going to speak on Divi, Themed by Elegant Themes. It's a drag and drop editor, visual style theme, which is very flexible, works also with WooCommerce. And we're going to have a Q&A, an open style round table, kind of help each other session. So that's Wednesday in Topanga at the Topanga Library, public library. From, I think it's 6:30 to 8:30.
Important thing to know, just in case anybody's not aware, Woo is South Africa, correct? That's where they're
Woo is based in South Africa.
So they're global. They're Netherlands, South Africa.
But they're coming from a good chunk of distance away.
2 original people came from South
So this is a good
Mike's not
opportunity. No, it's on.
You
Check 1, 2.
check 1, 2.
Yeah.
Mine's on.
Check 1, 2.
I'm speaking with a little
I have to swallow the
board
mic.
than he is.
So these guys do come
Not a
from a
big
long
deal.
ways away to help out. So it's a really good resource if you've got the time to come check it out. So
Next Saturday, right?
This Saturday, 2 to 4 at OPODs in downtown LA. So all information's on the site.
Okay, I'm going to try to wrap up the announcements in like 2 minutes so that we don't just do announcements all night. But there are a few people that are here tonight that have freelancing opportunities for other WordPress consultants. I know 2 of them right now. Who here has opportunities for other consultants? 1, 2. Okay. What's your name really quick again?
Hi, I'm Ed Reyes. I have a production. My name is Ed Reyes. I have a production studio in the Valley. And as of this month, I've got 2 big corporate sites that I have to redesign and rebuild. Mostly product stuff that they have in their catalog. And I'm looking for anyone that's a freelancer, doesn't matter if you're in LA or in the Valley. It's a job opportunity, so part-time, full-time. Let me know. See me after the show.
Got it.
Meetup.
Yep. His name's Ed again, so
Yeah.
touch base with Ed before you leave if you're interested in talking with him about that opportunity.
Hi, my name's Dave. I work at a local business and they want to redo their website. I do a little WordPress, some WordPress. I do PHP MySQL, database programming. And he really said he wants a really nice designer, which I don't do. Mostly, I love to.
So you're looking to partner with a designer?
Partner with a designer and / developer. He just wants the site made.
Very good. What's your name one more time?
Dave.
Dave. Okay, so see Dave if you are designer, specializing in design for WordPress, but also development. Okay, one more job opportunity. There's a large entertainment company that got a hold of me this week. They're looking for a project manager to join their team, and it's a really good opportunity. So if you are, and they're looking for someone that has specifically project management experience with WordPress websites or in a WordPress agency or studio. So if you are that person, if you've had some experience doing project management, specifically managing WordPress projects, see me after this thing ends, and then I will connect you with that person. Okay, that's all the announcements. We're done with announcements. So, what we're going to do first is I decided to do something a little different to start this evening off. Greg Madore and I are sitting up here, which is very unusual. And what's, oh, this isn't plugged into that right now. Okay, can we plug that into this? Okay, cool. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this new thing that every once in a while we'll do something like that I'm now calling Candid Conversations with WordPress Consultants. And Greg and I both, you know, occasionally we'll have conversations about the types of clients that we're taking on, the types of business that we're doing. And I thought it would be really cool to have this kind of conversation where other people could kind of peek in on what our experience is like. They can possibly learn from or ask us questions about our experience, and it might help them as they're doing their own consulting businesses. So, basically, the little bit of the thing that I wrote about this, and I'll try to get, I don't want to stick too long in this, but basically there's a lot of us that are wearing like all the hats in our WP freelance consulting businesses. And how many people here are doing everything in their WordPress consulting business? Yeah. This is like really normal. And in fact, I'm going to make a point about this a little later, but on your pathway to becoming an artisan and embracing that path is kind of being a generalist at the beginning. And Greg Madore, he functions very much as a generalist within his working environment. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to start asking you some questions, and then we'll just kind of dovetail from there. But okay, so this is Greg Madore. Welcome, Greg Madore, to Tech 90. So you can find him at tech90.com. So, Greg, how did you get started designing / building websites using WordPress?
I started, I think probably the way a lot of us started with, you know, HTML tables in the 90s, just putting up, you know, whatever it is we could put up on a web page, whether it was at college or, you know, whatever space you had access to. I had an Angel Fire site in the 80s, you know, where you were ripping off animated GIFs across the entire page because you could, you know. And from there, I kind of started noodling around and just, for film school, I went to the Rochester Institute of Technology. So for film school, they encouraged you to kind of tinker around with the web and put your movies on the web, and so each student got a certain amount of space on the RIT web page, and we could do that. So I built out my tables and my gloriously designed gigantic buttons that had, you know, fireworks, JavaScript rollovers, and I started taking that apart and breaking it and then fixing it. And so that's kind of where the web started for me. I started integrating things like PHP BB, Gallery, the kind of pre-packaged software tool sets into bigger projects when customers came to me and said, hey, can I have a gallery? Can I have, instead of just static content, I wanted to make it so that they could manage some of that content. And with every customer came a different challenge, and I always kind of learned something new with whatever customer that was, whenever that challenge came down the road. So from there I went to Movable Type. I don't know if folks remember Movable Type, or I mean, a really interesting platform. That kind of got me into content management systems, and then somebody came to me, a client friend of mine came to me and he had a web page that had just fallen into disrepair, and it's for a USO style thing called the Spirit of America Tour. It's country bands that would go and play for the troops at the bases domestically. So he wanted a new site, and I talked to a friend of mine that develops websites, and he says, I think we should try this WordPress thing. I was like, okay, and I just completely paid him to do it. And
What year was that when this was happening?
2007. So, and all of a sudden he gave me this content management system, and he made it so that I could update it and keep all the tour dates live. So I started taking that apart and playing around with it, and yeah, that's what started.
That's what started your journey.
From that point on, it was, I basically said, this is for me. This is going to work for me, because it takes a lot of the nuts and bolts out of the setup of the bulk of the CMS and lets you kind of start from there and work your way out.
In many cases right now, you have work that's now coming to you from a few contacts.
Correct.
When you're taking on a new client, what does a typical project look like for you? Or if it's an atypical client, or if none of them are quite the same, what's maybe one example of a client?
I guess the thing I would probably say is that no matter what here, we're not talking 2006 anymore, we're talking 2014. A lot's changed between 2006 and 2014, both, you know, in the industry, personally for me, as well as probably for a lot of you. I think I'd probably have everybody's agreement here that says every customer is different now. There's not, I don't work with a lot of gigantic companies, so every single site is different, every single customer is different. So I don't really have kind of a pre-packaged sort of introductory material. I take each customer when they call me, I sit them down, I talk to them about what I can do, which I'll be the first one to admit isn't everything. I want to encourage everyone to know what they're good at, reach for new things on each project. Whatever that project is, try to learn something new, whether it's a new CSS trick or something in JavaScript, or just take that project and reach one step beyond where you are now, just to keep you growing. So as far as kind of the nuts and bolts of the question, most of my larger projects, which is probably what more folks are interested in, come from a design firm that I actually have my office with them in Glendale. And they're a print design company that does really well with their web stuff as well. And I work with them from the beginning to kind of give them an element of a framework that will work whatever that theme is. Sometimes it's 2014, sometimes it's something completely custom that we buy from Beam Forest or what have you. But I try to give them a starting point, and then they go crazy with the design, and they do great design work, and then we bring it back to the WordPress world. So I'm a little bit more freeform.
But what you're doing is, they're coming to you with a design, and you're kind of wearing all the hats of development and research, and you're doing everything on the WordPress website, basically.
I'm interacting with their customers at times. It's not the type of thing where they hand me the design, I go behind closed doors and do the work, and then I hand them the work. I'm interacting with their customers.
You're a part of their team.
I'm effectively a part of their team as a consultant.
So, but they're specializing in the design aspect, and you're taking it on and developing everything. And when you're researching all this, like when you're looking for answers to solve what you need to do for a project, where do you go for looking for things like plugins, or looking for just doing research in general on WordPress to do something specific?
I think at this point, we've been doing this for 7 years. So we've got a certain collection of developers, whether it's plugin developers or that we know and trust, So we kind of have an idea as to where we're starting the project with and what the scope of that project is going to be.
But let's say you don't have that developer as a resource, let's say you need to research all this yourself. How do you kind of, like when you're not able to charge the client for someone else's time, and you're being expected to build that yourself, where you go to find that answer? How do you kind of keep it in your wheelhouse? You know what I'm saying? Like, so that it doesn't get too far away from your skill set where you're just like, it's over your head, you don't get it.
I think that comes with setting expectations from the beginning of the project, and it comes back to knowing what you're capable of and making sure that in some form of writing, whether that takes the form of a contract, if you guys have a boilerplate contract that you can work from, or probably folks that work for bigger companies have heard of a statement of work. Have you guys seen that? A lot of development companies will give a statement of work that breaks down the pages that they're going to do. It's almost like a contract, but it's a little bit looser, but it's at least something in writing that says this is what we're going to do, this is the time frame we're going to do it in, and we're going to do it for this price. So at least have those three elements in writing, the number of pages, what the page basic content is going to be, and then you have something to work back to in case scope creep starts happening.
That's a good answer to that question. A good follow-up question is, let's say you get to a point in the project where you've already been working with them, you did have that statement of work originally, but you get to the end and they come to you with a whole bunch of things they didn't know they needed at the beginning of the project. You gauge it might take 10 up to maybe 20 hours of extra work of your time. They just want to tack on these extra features to their website. How do you broach that conversation? How do you have that conversation with them that they're now in scope creep land?
I do two things. It's kind of at both ends of the process. The first thing I do is I never, especially for the larger projects, I try to say this is the range of the estimate. Okay, it's going to be this price. It's going to be 10 grand. It's not going to be 15 grand. It's going to be somewhere between 15,000 and 20,000, or 8,000 and 12,000. And I say, if we get this amount of time to do the project, and it is exactly what is in the statement of work, then we can do it for the lower price. If we're adding additional functionality and I explain my upper end is 10 hours or 20 hours of additional work that we're not foreseeing at this point of the project. As long as they sign off on that statement of work that has that range, typically we don't have to have much of a frustrating conversation. It's just we say, okay, now we're working into that midpoint of that range, or now we're at the high point of that range, and we will have to start having that conversation. But what I always try to do is don't let it get to the point where you've done the work before you start talking about that conversation where the rates have to change. So just be upfront with your customers when the rates are needing to change or something needs to be added as a new line item. Be clear as to what that is, and as long as the statement of work is clear and everybody's agreed to it, it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Benno, you had a question?
Yeah, how do you collect your money, down payment, and then
The question is, when do you collect money and how do you collect money? Is there a down payment? Is it one-time payment total, the whole thing? Yeah. What do you use?
Because I'm working with an agency that I work with a lot, and they focus on we work on some of these larger projects that have a lot of features in them that are, the whole project, if you look at it, is probably $300,000, $400,000. Not just the site, but the location setups, all the project management. They do all that stuff. I come in as a consultant to handle the web development aspect of it. I work with this company all the time. I do their IT work, I do their networking, so the bulk of these larger projects, I basically wait till the project's done, bill them for it, and I know this company, and we work together a lot, and I can trust them. So, yeah.
What about your smaller clients?
Smaller clients, because I'm a little different than, I'm not a pure web developer. I'm more of a technology consultant. I do networking support, I do hardware installations, so the web development end of it is, I can't call it secondary anymore because I've been doing it more than anything else in the last year, but that's only really been in the last year. All the other stuff that I do is a much faster turnaround, so I don't have to focus on just the web development end of it. If I'm doing $1,000 or $2,000 website, we'll talk about it up front, and if it's a project I believe in and it's somebody I've worked with before and I trust, again, I'll just bill it at the end of it. If it's something that I have a question about, yeah, I'll do half up front, half of, I can't break down a $1,000 or $2,000 site into thirds. It's just, I don't want to deal with the billing end of it, to be completely honest with you. I just want to do the work, yes, sir.
Getting back to your statement of
Yeah.
work, do you worry that the client will shop around what you propose if you're a first person?
So the question is, are you concerned with they're going to shop around after they've gotten a bid or a quote from you?
Yeah.
So they say, oh good, I got this free value of having this quote. Now I'm going to go look at what other people would charge me for the same thing.
Right.
You want to answer that?
Yeah, I can answer that one.
I'll give my opinion after
Yeah.
Greg's opinion.
My opinion on that subject is, right now we live in a time and a place where the commoditization has already happened. We're living in a post-commoditization world. And to stay concerned about that, or to allow that to even be something that's staying with you and as you're working forward and as you're doing your thing, I think it's something just to let go of. And just let people do what they're going to do, because they're going to do it anyways.
Right.
And do your best to just offer a lot of value and communicate your value when you have them on the phone or when you have an opportunity to write them an email. During that time, if we're able to focus on and get the conversation on the value you bring to the table and the unique value proposition you are as a business partner to them, now we've got a better conversation going. Instead of it being like a race to the bottom. Who can charge the least amount for this website? Because you're not going to win that battle. Fiverr already beat you.
I think the biggest thing that I try to do, kind of along the lines of what Greg is saying, I have so many things that I'm working on in a given day to worry about what somebody's coming to me with as a project and to worry about what they're going to do with that project after I give them that estimate. I've got plenty of things on my plate to worry about. That just can't be done. So I try to give as accurate and clear an estimate as possible. And I've gotten jobs where I know I'm not the least expensive, or where I know I'm not the cheapest. Okay? Because I'm clear, I'm upfront about what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and most of my business is through referrals. So I don't do a lot with social media presence. I know how to do social media, but I keep a very organic business development model that way. I don't want to be, right now, $1 million a year company. So I keep it close, and then those people refer me to other people, and they know what my capabilities are, and they know I'm going to deliver on time, even if that's 4 days beforehand, the design changes, and my price may change, but I'll deliver it on time, which is really important to a lot.
When you're working with these smaller businesses,
Yeah.
Do you create a written requirements list with your estimate? Because that's kind of part of the same question, because that takes time. And I'll just throw something, I'm part of a FileMaker community, and people are paid to write that requirements list, which is then handed around, but you got paid to create it, you might get aced out, but curious how you handle that.
So are we talking about like this site will be working for IE9 or later, or are we talking about we will have this page content?
I'm sorry?
Are we talking about requirements as far as...
In other words, a small business comes to you, wants an estimate, you say, I'll do this, this, this. for
So
this
you're
amount.
asking them to write the requirement list, correct?
Either way, it's whichever way you handle it.
I'll a lot of times ask the end customer if they're capable of writing up what it is they want.
Yeah, that's called an RFP, a request for a proposal, and then there would be a list of things. But I do know that there's people that do get paid a good amount of money for the discovery phase of a project, and they will come up with, in some cases it's a bullet list, in other cases it's a comprehensive list of statement of work that we're going to do, and that can be a deliverable. That's like, we're going to deliver this to the client. We've done this research, this is what your website should include. You can now take that to anybody you want to, and they get paid for that time. So yeah, I do know that that's, what was your question about that? Was that the
No,
question?
I think that was the question.
That is it, and you said some people charge.
I've charged,
for it.
yeah, I've charged for the
Once you're
discovery
paying for
phase.
that bit of the
I'll tell you where
deliverable-
my cutoff point is on that when we talk about charging for the discovery phase. Because really what we're talking about is a fine line between, I'm gonna write a proposal for a small business, and I'm gonna like write a big proposal that's like a deliverable in and of
those are
itself.
two very different projects. $1,000 site, I'm not gonna put in 4 hours to write a proposal. I might be able to do the entire site in 4 hours.
But
You know
for
what I
a
mean? So
larger,
it's-
for a larger
Absolutely.
client, you know, they might come to you, they say, you know, we've got a lot of products that are gonna go into our e-commerce solution. Our website's gonna have a lot of pages on it. They've got a big plan. They have venture capital behind what they're doing. Then you kind of like start looking at it in terms of, I'm gonna be a business partner with these people for the coming months, however many months the project's gonna go. And I really need to look at this and scope this out. Like I need to get paid to literally work on the scope because I'm helping a startup launch. So yeah, and there is a certain point in time where we say, okay, you can decide what's comfortable for you, but let's say hypothetically you wanted to say 10K and above. If I scope it, it's going to be there. I need to charge whatever it's going to be to make it comfortable for me to write the amount of time it's going to take. You know, this crazy proposal that could take me several days to work on.
And the biggest thing for me is, I'll work on smaller projects. My cutoff is when it comes to compliance. HIPAA, any kind of legal compliance where there's that line that we need to be very clear that this is not somebody's portfolio page. This needs to be bulletproof security. This needs to be within the scope of what can be done within the law. That's where I really start locking down and saying, okay, we need to have this very well documented, you know, a side project for a startup, you know, nonprofit. Be clear, be concise, make sure it's documented, make sure you have a paper trail. But I kind of let certain things slide with that because, like I said, some of the documentation can take just as long as the project does.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to, nor do my clients want to pay me double to write a proposal. So.
Are there any other questions for us? No? Yes, one more.
Yeah, how do you guys, or what are your thoughts or thinking around the intellectual property that you guys are creating? Like, is that...
Questions around intellectual property?
Yeah, is that even a thought process for you guys?
When you say intellectual property, you're talking about what? They might come to you with an NDA and you got to sign them.
That, and also more specific, like if you guys do any custom coding, or if you guys are actually part of the design of layouts or logos or...
Okay, so this is a good question. Are we involved in the coding and the design? You know, different projects, different scale projects will call for different involvement. There are some larger projects that I'm on right now that, you know, I have to have a team of people, it's not just me. And we do custom development. And that's a part of that project. In other cases, like many of the sites that Greg and I end up kind of talking about in today's space, these small business clients, what we're looking for is we're looking for a way of giving them a lot of value for a small amount of money, like a smaller budget. And in that case, what we're doing a lot of times is customizing themes, creating a child theme, taking plugins that are already written by others and creating a little package on the website. So we're doing that research on the client's behalf. It's almost looking at it in terms of, on smaller business clients, you almost function as a website builder. And on larger budget projects, you're custom dev, you know, doing things larger. I niche more on the design side of things. So when I'm quoting larger projects, I may reach out to a developer that's going to do the custom development, and I'll focus mostly on the UX, UI side, and then we'll decide who's doing what and work together to design and develop the whole site. Does that answer the question?
A little bit.
It's, if we're talking about intellectual property as far as the code that you write and whether or not you own that code versus the company you're doing the work for, is that?
That, and also just when you're outsourcing with other designers and they become a part of your team, do conflicts ever arise where
Yes.
someone says, oh, that's mine, like, screw you, you just charged $20,000, like, I want, that's mine.
There are things that you can do up front to set healthy boundaries for you and your working partners. So in some cases, so that we kept things above board, there's one project I was on last year where we had a contract, a separate contract between me and the team that I was working with before we went to the client. So we knew what we were doing together and signed that. Then we handed the contract over to the client, and it helped keep things kind of above board, and everybody kind of knew what their role was. Because oftentimes you're right, if roles get confusing on projects, it can cause a problem. It can cause disagreements. Things can get litigious.
Did that answer kind of the
Yeah,
gist of it?
yeah.
If you have more specific stuff, I can kind of talk to that a little bit more because we're always dealing with intellectual property with some of the projects we're working on. So I'll catch you after if you
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you coming up here.
Thank you.
Greg Madore, technology. So we're going to segue from that conversation into talking a little more about what it means to be an artisan. Since a lot of people here are bootstrapping their own businesses and they're creating their own operation, you're probably functioning as a generalist in your company. And that's cool. There's a time for that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to start talking about, and if you just want to stay a generalist, that's totally cool. So this isn't like, this is the only way to do things, But I've been walking this journey now. I got into WordPress design and development in 2010. Came out of the traditional web design world when we were building our content management systems without WordPress. And when I got into it, I found that for myself, I had to go through a whole new learning curve. It was almost like starting over. There were some things that translated and carried over, but I kind of had to embrace this idea of being a generalist again. So, how many people here come from a design background? Okay, good. All right, so how many people here worked at an agency in the past, some point in their career, where they were focused mostly on design-related requirements? Good number of people. There may be some parallel between the experience that other people are having here and the experience that the designers have had, but I'm going to speak to things from that perspective, and that's where this talk is going to go from here. What I'm talking about is what it looks like to become a WordPress artisan in today's world. If you are like me, you came from a design background, most of your job duties revolved around design requirements, you may have walked the path of, or had this expectation for your career. I know I'll be a junior designer. Cool, I'll get in an entry level. I'll work my way up. Eventually I'll be an art director at somebody else's company. Well, as many of you have probably already experienced, and this is what's happening in our world today, things are changing. The old agency model is morphing. It's changing. In many cases, it's shrinking. And the security of this system is also falling apart, especially since the television complex is eroding. It's dying. What we used to know about the way the world used to work is you put your ad on TV, you put it in magazines, you put it on the radio, you pretty much have the visibility, you have people's ears, you have their eyes. Your product has got lots of people seeing it. As a result, you could kind of build a whole metric around, this is how we do advertising. We put our thing on television, it reaches the broad audience, like Dove soap. It's like, well, people need soap. You put a TV ad on, and everybody sees the TV ad. When they're walking around the grocery store aisle, they buy Dove soap. Well, that's falling apart. And in the wake of this, at the same time, the internet has disrupted the television complex. The internet has been coming up. New tools like WordPress now becomes a very viable option for people to develop their own companies, their own businesses, their own mini agencies on their own steam. This is a cool and exciting time. But, that being said, there's no clear map for that. In fact, we have to go through something. Oh, by the way, my name is Greg, the co-founder of Art Control. Check out artcontrol.com. I also organize this Hollywood WordPress meetup group. There we go. So, this is the slide I was trying to get to. Who recognizes this? Who can tell me what that is? Anybody?
Creative.
No. That is called the dip. This is a theory and or idea that was written about in a book called The Dip by an author named Seth Godin. People here know Seth Godin? Yes. A couple of people. Seth Godin's a great author. Check out some of his Audible books if you don't like to read. Please read his books if you find him interesting. Or you can go on audible.com and download his books and he'll read his books to you. Which is what I like because I'm a lazy reader. Anyways, this is the dip. This is what your life will look like in the new path that you're going to walk in today's business world. As the agency and the old television complex continues to break down, more and more people are going to be coming into this space. And as WordPress now occupies 23% of the websites on the internet, that's like a quarter of the internet, which is kind of scary and cool. It provides a lot of opportunity. You can take it in a lot of different directions. You can be a designer and specialize in niches of designer. You can be a developer. You can be a marketer. You can take it in all different directions. But the thing that's probably going to be common amongst all of our experiences is going through the dip. Now, the basic concept behind the dip that Seth Godin describes in his book, The Dip, is in the beginning of the process, right over here. Let's say you found WordPress, you see, oh, I'm going to be able to make my vision come true. I'm going to be able to start a business using WordPress, and this is going to be so cool. I've got it all mapped out in my mind. So you get started on that journey, and you start building a bunch of websites, and you're learning WordPress, and you're doing all you can to learn it, and you kind of have an uptick. You're like, yes, sweet, I'm learning a bunch of stuff. Then, all of a sudden, you kind of get over that initial little surge of energy you had, and then you get into what we call the dip. By the way, this dip can last 2, 3, 4 years as you go through the dip. I hope I'm not like bumming you out. But this is the truth in today's world. Whether you embrace WordPress or whether you decide to do something else, this is a time of self-study, this is a time of doing your own research, and this is a time of figuring out and innovating your own business potential, your own small business. WordPress is a good option for that, and it seems to only be growing, which makes it a really great opportunity to jump in. But understand that you are going to go through a dip of learning, and you are going to learn for a good long time, and you're going to go through all kinds of hard knocks. But if you stick with it, you stay through these learning experiences, you push through the dip, you lean into the dip, you will come out the other side, and all of these experiences will start to gel. They'll start to work together in your mind. You'll start to see how failed projects in WordPress for one client leads to wisdom in dealing with the next one. Now, how does this relate to being a design artisan specifically? Because that's really what we're talking about here tonight. Well, the way that this relates to being a design artisan is you're going to have to get humble as a designer if you're coming out of any other traditional design world, and you're going to have to embrace that you're going to have to be a generalist again for a while. You're going to have to sweat out some tough times, some bad beats, some tough lessons. But what's the alternative? A day job. Now, Uber driver, working at the Apple Store, working at Best Buy. These are not bad options if that's the thing that you want to do, and it's cool, it's all good. But for those of you that have that dream, have that desire, you want to promote your own thing, you want to start your own business, you're ready to be entrepreneurial in a time when the world is working in your favor if you want to be entrepreneurial. Okay? The world's set up now so that you'll use the internet to be an entrepreneur. You're just going to have to go through the dip. Now, I want to get back to speaking specifically to designers. It's time now to strike a balance between a full-blown user experience UI design phase and having an agile, efficient, and flexible design process. What I'm talking about here is discernment. This new way of designing takes an intuitive feel that can only be achieved through self-discipline and time in the field. So, the reason why what I was really thinking about behind all this is there is a lot of different areas of concentration that people are finding now. You can be just a user experience designer at a company. And that's cool. And if that's the path you choose, there's a lot of different really great ways of learning more about user experience design, UI design, and you can niche in that area and you can work for a larger company doing that. But for those of us that are designers that have now found ourselves saying, I want to innovate myself, I want to take control of my own destiny, there's a different path we need to walk. And that's where this comes in. This comes in right at the beginning of the dip. It's an attitude adjustment. It's I'm going to make shifts and changes very quickly and on a dime when needed. And I'm going to do it because I can. I can control my own business. I can decide how I'm going to move things in my own WordPress development company. To be a WordPress designer craftsman, because that's what I'm beginning to think about, and that's where I want to take this conversation next. If you're a designer and you want to come out of the dip and you want to get more, you want to come out of being a generalist where you're doing everything at your company, and you want to transition into being a WordPress designer craftsman, there are two areas that I think are important to pay attention to, and I'm just going to read them. The WP Design Artisan cares about the technical and project details enough to plan their steps consciously and deliberately. And two, the WP Design Artisan has a mastery of themselves and their tools. And now I'm going to unpack those two things. What is a WordPress Design Artisan? And what do they do differently? Okay, so let's say you've been walking the path where you've been taking smaller budget projects, you've been doing WordPress design for however long it is. Maybe you find connections on design projects right out of the gate. Maybe you're a fortunate one that way. But in many cases, you'll be going through the dip, and you'll be a year, 2 years, 3 years into it, and you will have been building website projects by yourself, boot to bonnet. But you want to return to being an artisan. In the new world, in this new place, being a WordPress design artisan is going to look different than it did in the past. An artisan cares about the whole process as much as they do the end product. So what that means is the designer cares about the process enough to think critically, to use the appropriate tools to fit the client's needs instead of putting their filter on what the client needs. Instead of trying to force a process into, it's like shoehorning a process into a budget that the project doesn't belong in some cases, this means creating just a flowchart in 2 wireframes before moving into your UI design. In other cases, the project might warrant a full vision or project board with more comprehensive breakdown of what you will deliver to the client before the UI design process begins. An artisan is resourceful with their process and is a lifelong learner. A design artisan makes learning a part of their regular practice by staying current in design and development trends. So this is something that you're just going to have to embrace as you're going through the dip. This is going to be a regular part of your life now. Every month, you're going to have to be researching new things. You're going to have to be reading new things online. You're going to have to be prioritizing both development and design priorities. The time has passed where you could just focus on design. You could stick your head in the sand when it comes to business and development. You have to start caring about development now. A design artisan innovates and learns through the dip. Instead of giving up when things get tough, the design artisan learns what they don't already know about business, about programming a website, or about developing, or about customizing, or building their website. And this is going to be key to making it through the dip. I think that if you embrace this very concept here about I'm going to stay strong and I'm going to lean into the dip and learn through it, I'm going to innovate my business through it to keep it profitable, that will help you get through the dip without quitting halfway through. The time to quit the dip, by the way, is like right at the beginning. If you don't want to be a WordPress person, then like quit at the beginning. Don't get like into the middle of the dip like 3 years down the road and then quit. Okay, so these are some tips and suggestions for a practicing artisan or someone that's getting ready to transition from being a general WordPress practitioner and getting more into being a practicing artisan. Cultivating a design artisan's mindset. I have one note on this. Create and stick to a morning routine. I'm going to share with you a really simple one that I use right now. There's many different ways. You can even Google creating a morning routine and you probably come back with a lot of cool results. But I'm going to give you a simple one right now because what we're talking about is mental toughness. We're talking about getting through a dip in a world that's going to challenge us. Our working partners will challenge us. Our clients will challenge us. Just learning WordPress and getting through just learning the nuts and bolts of being a consultant in this space has a whole bunch of challenges in and of itself. Staying mentally strong and setting yourself up for success so you can get through those times is key if you're going to make it through the dip. So this is what I do right now. I think it's a pretty cool way to go. As soon as I wake up in the morning, I drink at least half a liter of water, if not a whole liter. It's the first thing I do when I get out of bed. I know it sounds silly, right? Like, okay, good. I'm glad it's resonating a little bit. So they say that here in the Western world, we are very dehydrated, most of us. So drink a bunch of water right when you wake up. And then allow yourself to feel good about what you just did. Which is a really funny thing, but oftentimes we're fighting against ourselves. So we'll do something we think, oh, this is good for me, I'm going to do this, right? And we're like, oh, I just drank all that water, I didn't want to drink all that water, right? No, you just did something, and you accomplished something. That's the first thing you did of the day that you got accomplished. Okay. Write 2 lists right when you wake up before you eat breakfast. The 2 lists are 3 things that you are grateful for. That's the first list. I just write them down really fast in a little notepad. Then write down 3 things that are either to-dos, goals, or ideas. So you just want to get your mind working right when you wake up. I'll just write down what I'm going to do that day. So, 3 things I need to get done today. And then I pick one of those things that is like my big thing of the day that I have to get done that day. That becomes the thing that I try to get done by lunch. It's a really great way to go because if you can get one big thing done by lunch without getting like caught up in email and Facebook and Twitter and all the other stuff that's going to distract you. You feel a sense of accomplishment. It helps you get 2 or 3 more things more done by the end of the day that are smaller that were on your list. You start feeling that momentum you start building in life. Helps you get through the dip. When you collect a bunch of those days together over 2 or 3 years, it's a good thing. Okay, this is going to sound bulky, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyways. This is the other thing that I'll do regularly. I don't do it every day, but it's something I do regularly. I say this affirmation in the mirror. But it's really awesome, and I'm just going to like tell you guys because it's cool, and it'll totally I think it's just amazing. I think everybody should do this. Okay, so this is focusing more on building self-esteem. Because we live in a time and a place, especially if you're a WordPress designer developer, where the world is challenging you on how you feel about yourself. The world is challenging you to feel like crap about what you're doing, about what you're learning, about what you're building, about who you're working with, about what partners you got, about what clients you're currently working with, all that stuff. The world constantly wants you, I mean, the world doesn't, it's not a conspiracy. Left to our own devices, our mind naturally wanders too much to the past and too much to the future. And if your mind is always creating too much past, things that have already happened you can't change anyways, and now just build up guilt and resentment and blah, blah, blah. Or if it's creating too much future, which is also, well, that's illusory, you know, whether it's a positive future that you're imagining or a negative one, both are illusory and have not yet happened. All you have is this moment. All you can control is this moment. So, I say this affirmation in the mirror. I'll look in the mirror, I'll just look at myself and I'll say, I unequivocally and completely accept myself. There may be things that I'd like to change, but in this moment, I accept myself. And then I'll just stay with whatever emotions come up after that. Just hang with it. Don't push against what happens next. Just be the present, just be the conscious presence, staying with those thoughts. Because your mind is going to race back with a bunch of stuff. Yeah, but I don't like this about myself. I don't like that. I want to change this. I want to change this about my circumstance, my situation. I don't like this about my business. Right? And just say, I'm going to get to all that. There's going to be a time and a place where I'm going to handle all that. It's going to happen today, probably. But in this moment, I accept myself just as I am, without trying to change anything. Until you can get to that moment where you can esteem yourself at that level, you're not going to be able to start breaking through in self-esteem. You've got to accept yourself before, you got to stop fighting yourself before you can start esteeming your clients. Start bringing value to your clients. Start putting them on in a major way. The design artisan's business focus. The artisan keeps in mind the behavioral objectives of their client. And what I mean by that is, you set goals with your client early on. If you're an artisan, it's no longer about, did I build a WordPress website for my client? Good, got it out the door, great. It now becomes, what are the behavioral objectives that my client has for their users? How do I help as a designer to inspire the end audience to take those steps to help shape their behavior from the website to do whatever the client is hoping the user will do. Do we want the user to purchase something? Do we want them to sign up for something? So the artisan keeps that in mind. The artisan tracks their time and thinks critically about how their time is spent. They understand that working billable hours is important, but the way they organize their tasks during that time is what directly relates to creating value for their clients. And the reason why I put that in there is I really think the difference between being a novice or a person that's just kind of building websites on the fly and an artisan, the difference in a lot of cases is just how time is spent, how they think about time, and how they're able to track time and communicate what they did during that time to the client. If you can communicate to the client, this is going to take 10 hours and this is why, and you're accurate in that, and then you can track your time and they say to you later, well, I'd like to know where all that time went that you said you're going to do for the last month. And I know we just did a phase 2 on my website, and I know I just paid you, but what did you do during that time? If you're tracking your time, keeping a record of what you're doing, then you can tell your client. I just recently sent one of these emails 2 weeks ago to one of my clients that challenged me in that way. Said, yeah, I know that we did this, phase 2. I'll pay you, but I just kind of want to know what did you do during that time. And I had made notes in I use iCal, which is pretty chill. I mean, there's nothing rooty-tooty about iCal. And you just put your thing. I was tracking the time and putting in what I was doing every day during the time I was working on his project, but not just his, but other projects that I'm on at the same time during that week. And I'm tracking everything. And I'm just making it a habit. Every time I'm doing something, I'm tracking things. Track your time. There's some other great tools for it, by the way. I use something called FreshBooks, and I just signed up for it not too long ago. FreshBooks is amazing. It works with BidSketch really well. I like using BidSketch. They have an API that connects the two. I can create my bid in BidSketch, a proposal, with one click. It spins over to FreshBooks and creates my client and the invoice to send to the client. Very cool stuff. But in FreshBooks, they have a way that you can track your time for all your projects right there. And that's a tool that I'm thinking of experimenting with next. But for now, I'm just using the calendar. The design artisan's development focus. The design artisan takes into consideration the technical constraints and requirements, consulting with the developer or development team before they start designing their sketches, flowchart, wireframes, and UI. What this means is, to be an artisan that is a designer, you've got to start caring about these types of details. You can't just start willy-nilly designing stuff off the top of your head and hoping that the developer will just take it and spin it into a website out of thin air. You have to start thinking about, I'm going to design this with the end in mind. I'm going to design from the beginning with how it's going to be developed at the end through my whole process. So as I'm designing my flowchart, wireframes, UI, all my sketches, I'm doing this thinking about, one example would be you've got underscores with Bootstrap. And you're working with the developer, you're the designer, you're working with the developer, you're going to handle all the UX, UI, and some front-end development, and then the developer is going to develop it using underscores and Bootstrap. Well, if you know that, you've never designed for Bootstrap before, you might want to go online, look up a 12-column grid, Bootstrap, and use that to design and develop your wireframes, UI, all that stuff. The design artisan embraces how mobile and modern web development challenge them to innovate within the technical guidelines in the work they create. And the last thing that the design artisan does is they let the boundaries for the way the site will be developed inspire them rather than bum them out about the design work that they're doing. So the idea is you should just be excited. You should just be like, you know what, I'm just going to let these restraints that I'm experiencing just like inspire me to work within those boundaries to create a new kind of cool design within the constraints. And this is the last thing right here, the Design Artisan's Tools. And I want to talk a little bit about this, and I want to show you an example from one of my own project boards with one of my, well, this is a demo project board I'm going to show you. It's not from a real client, but it's how I would work through a project as a WordPress design artisan, taking into account that I'm trying to still edit this process. I'm not trying to create this really big, long, elaborate user experience design process. Because I have to still go to this client and sell, I still have to sell a longer discovery phase. I still have to sell a longer design phase. And you're going to have to also embrace that as a design artisan. If you want to niche there and you want to work with developers and you no longer want to play the role of a generalist, then you're going to have to embrace the fact that you're going to have to start selling projects at a higher price point. Because the client is going to have to understand, I need to pay them more for the discovery phase. If we're going to have more meetings, more emails, and there's going to be user personas, user scenarios, vision, flowchart, style guide, wireframes, grid-based templates that we're going to design for them. This all needs to be incorporated into our original budget. Otherwise, you're just working for free. Or you're working for $5 an hour by the time the project's done. It's like, oh, I think I scoped that project out to make $75 or $100 an hour. Nope, you made $5 an hour because you didn't budget your time properly from the very beginning. You didn't understand, you didn't make the connection between how much time everything was going to take you. So that's going to happen as you go through the dip and you play the role of a generalist and you really build websites in WordPress. It's going to teach you those lessons. And then as you're coming out of the dip and you return back to design, back to the world of I just want to focus mostly on UX, UI, you can get back into that world as you court bigger projects and charge more money for those projects. But you've got to give deliberate and conscious thought to the way you price the project. I'm sorry I spent so long on that. Okay, so if you go to premiuminteractive.com/serenity right now, this right here is a fictional company called Serenity that I created for this purpose. What I've done is I've built just a simple page on my website, premiuminteractive.com. And this would be for a client. It might just be the client's name, premiuminteractive.com/the client's name. In this case, it's called Serenity. Serenity Day Spa and Hot Yoga. You'll see here what I've done is I've created user scenarios. And so if I click here, you'll see what I've done is I've taken conversations that I've had with the client, and I scoped this out to begin with, but we talked about what is your customer's main pain point. In this case, it was a small business owner, and then we talk about the small business customer and their pain, and we just kind of mapped out what their pain is. So you can click on that and read that through if you'd like to. But that's a user scenario. This is kind of a quick way to incorporate user scenarios into your WordPress design process, and something that can add more value to what you bring to the table for your client. How many other WordPress designers and developers are bringing this kind of attention to detail in their users' pain points? Not that many. Business objectives. You want to take into account your customer's business objectives. This is a really cool way, right here, of illustrating. You know, you've got your business objectives over here. You've got your related user goals over here. You guys can check this out a little more later. I'm going to keep moving. But the idea is you establish what the pain points are and how we're going to meet their business objectives with related user goals. These are the behaviors that we talked about earlier that we want the user to take. So in this case, I created a couple of quick little examples. Here we have the small business owner. of Serenity Spa. Here we have the small business client of the Serenity Spa. And I just kind of talk a little bit about, each person. That's another thing that can kind of become a part of, it's another arrow in your quiver. It's another thing that you can keep in mind that you could use to better communicate your concepts and ideas to your client, and it can be used as an upsell through that design phase. Or maybe you want to mix and match. Maybe you don't want to do all this stuff at the beginning. Maybe you just skip all that and you just jump down here to the theme. You just skip down to the flow chart. You quickly tell the client, hey, we're going to do a flow chart for you on this project, so we're going to, I'll do all this work without talking to you about it. And then we'll jump right into the flowchart part of the process. So maybe you only have enough budget in the project to allot for flowchart user experience design. You can do that. You can edit the process to meet the need of the client. And this is a good example right here of a really cool flowchart. I'll let you check that out later. Here's wireframes, specific wireframes with annotations. Annotations are little notes that are made about the wireframe and what's going to happen and what the user is going to experience as they walk through the website. Here you'll see I had a little place where they go to sign up, and then I illustrated how they sign up. I illustrated how they book an appointment, and then I illustrated the cart checkout system. And then it's all based on the user flow that we wanted to create for their client. So I showed them that in wireframe first, even before I do the UI. If I'm also doing the branding for the client, I'll say, hey, this is my proposed brand solution for you, the client. I'll design their logo. And then I'll create something called a style guide. There's this really cool plugin that I use for this right here to create this style guide. It's called the SG60 Style Guide Creator by Arc Control, which I just also happen to own that company. So check it out, it's a free plugin. You can go into WordPress.org, you can go into plugins, look up Style Guide. You can download it for free. It's an awesome little plugin. You can make it a part of your pitch to your clients. Even on small business projects, you can spin one of these up really fast. Literally all you do is you go in, you add the hex, you add the little numbers here for each color. It'll create the layout for you. So it looks professional, looks cool, looks good. You add the fonts, boom, boom, boom. There's your fonts looking good. You just use that little short code, put it in your project board, and show it to your client. You're good to go. And then down here, as I do the UI design, I just add it to the project board. So we just keep returning to this, and I'll just keep adding to the project board. When you first give the client the project board, it might just be the style guide only and a couple of wireframes. And then by the end of the discovery phase, you've worked your way through, and in the design phase, discovery/design phase, you've now shown them the UI. And here I just went through the UI, I showed them the About page, I showed them the Contact page, I showed them the sign up, how that's going to get executed, the login, the book appointment page, and the payment process. And so basically that is what I wanted to show you is in terms of making this transition from seeing yourself as a WordPress generalist building websites to seeing yourself more as a WordPress artisan, beginning to specialize, beginning to niche as a designer. Right now, I'm going to take questions. So thank you very much. What are some of the questions that come up as we're going through this? Yes?
Well, this beautiful thing you just created, is there a paycheck attached to that, or did you already get the job and then you start this?
Yes, good question. So the question is, when do I do this work? Do I do it before I get the job, or do I do it after I get the job? The answer to that question is, it's after I get the job.
Okay.
I might use an example from another project, or in this case, I have this dummy project I just made on my own portfolio website. And I, in some cases, might show that, but I'm even leery in showing that. I might just describe it to the client before we get started together. Say it's going to be a part of our discovery phase. We're going to be doing flowchart, wireframes together. This is what the process looks like, and then I'll make it a part of a larger project. And typically, I will not be doing this kind of work unless it's a larger website that has a real need for the clients to be, a real need for the end user to be doing something on the website. checking out, signing up for something, becoming a member in a member area. If I'm just doing a brochureware website, this design phase gets truncated more and more and more. I might still do the style guide, but that might be as far as it goes. From there, I might be using a WordPress theme and customizing with a child theme, keeping the budget lower for a smaller brochureware website that just promotes their business. Really, I see it as two different categories. Websites that promote businesses and websites where people actually do the business on the website. Other questions about any of what I shared here?
For a website or a company like this size, how many hours of discovery would you charge for?
Okay, so the question is how many hours do you attach to something like a discovery phase, discovery/design phase?
Yeah,
Okay, of this scope here, how many hours? Okay, so for this level of work, it would be, you would schedule several meetings, or what I would say is like waypoints, check-in times. So it might be a combination of in-person and phone meetings. It might be Skype. But what you want to do is you want to set it up so that, in this, how many hours is involved in something like this? It's a good question. It's going to be between 20 and 30. I don't know, that might be too many. Around 20, give or take. But you want to give yourself a good amount of time on that. And you also want to think about the meetings. Because all the checking in, all the emailing, all this is time you're spending on the project. So you should be considering that when you're considering doing this kind of work. So I had 3 hands go up. I'm going to start here.
Yeah, I found that any of these projects that come along, get your view of it, you need, basically, I don't see how any complicated project, or even a fairly complicated project one person could do it. For instance, if the client says, yeah, I want a web page, but I also want something that's a database, I'm going to call my friend Dave because he's a database expert, and he can make me a database for the client. Or I might have to call somebody that will set up the credit card situation because it's very complicated. So there's, aside from the artistic part and the basic nuts and bolts, you've got a lot of things that are real specific that might require people with really in-depth knowledge that takes years and years to get on, let's say, a database, for instance.
Yes, so I'm just going to rephrase that really quickly.
Yeah.
On projects of this size, you typically are working with a larger team because it is difficult for one person to get it all done, especially within the time frame that it needs to be developed. One person could do a boot tip on it, but it becomes almost like a job for the company. But if this company wants to launch this in 2 or 3 months from now, it could take, you could develop with a team, have a budget to cover each person's role, and you're good to go. Now, what I've done is when I was going through the dip, going through my own dip, as I'm defining my own business, I was a generalist. And I started getting into communities like this one. I started hanging out here, as you do, and many other people come here to this one or to other meetups around town or whatever. And I started reaching out to other people and got to know what other people were doing. And I got to see what type of work they were producing. That opened doors for me to work with developers, to work with marketers, to work with project managers. So I have people that I've worked with now on several projects. I know what they do, I know what they can do. In fact, this very project board that I did here, it's like a demo board, was done with a developer friend of mine after we'd already worked on some projects together. So it's a part of going through the dip. It's a part of all that messy kind of, I don't know how I'm going to get to the end yet, and I don't know who's going to come into my life that's going to allow me to bid on larger projects like that. But I've got the vision. I want to build larger projects. I want to bid on larger projects, and I want to attract those kinds of people into my life. So that's what coming to these types of meetups does. It exposes you to those people that become your business partners. Was that answering what you were getting at?
Yeah, I just wanted your view on it.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, I have a few people now that I work with regularly on projects, and we take projects together, and we'll bid. And first what I'll do is I'll consult with them, we'll talk about how we're going to develop it, and I'll talk about how I'm going to design it. I'll get an idea of how many hours it's going to take me, they'll get an idea of how many hours it's going to take them, and we'll get an idea of what our time frame is and what our budget is before we go talk to the client, and we'll bid together. Or maybe I'll bid on their behalf, but I'll already know what they're going to make and what is the parameters or the deliverables on the project before I even go talk to the client.
A lot of clients, the point is, I think, and it's a very sensitive issue, but the point is that a lot of clients want a certain job done. They don't understand all the mechanics that go into it. So I've found, just in my stupid little stuff, that I almost never say no. Like if somebody says, well, here I want to do this, I'll say, okay, do it. And then get down to specifics because I know that I will find somebody to do the parts that I can't do. But I always say, yeah, I'll do it, I can do it. Because I don't want that client going anywhere else. I want him to think that I'm the guy, you call me, I'll take care of it, and we're going to talk money and blah, blah, blah. But I never say no. I say, sure, I can do it, I'll take care of it, man, whatever you want to do.
Well, I respect that perspective.
Hey, Greg, can I chime in
Yeah,
here?
go ahead, Greg.
Voice from God.
Yeah.
I just did a project that launched not long ago where I actually called Greg. And I said, hey, here's the project that we want to do. Here's what the deliverables currently look like. We didn't know exactly what the deliverables were. And even to this day, we've launched phase 1 of the site, and we still don't know what the deliverables are. That's the nature of when you're working with gigantic conglomerates. A lot of times here in 2014, it's not one agency that does it. We're actually working with 3 different agencies that are all doing different parts of the project. And I called up Greg and I said, hey, here's the project, here's what we're expecting the budget to be. I kind of want to bring you in this from a UI standpoint. It's not going to be dramatically interesting because I have a design firm that is going to do the design, but I want your opinion. And Greg basically looked at me in a very kind and courteous Greg Douglas way, said, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I actually, to dovetail on that, I do say no, and I say no a lot. Okay. Now that being said, that being said, I don't want to say that I think there's a time and a place, and I'll say for myself too, this is also true of me. When I first got started, just ramping up and going through the dip, I did take everything. Now I'm in a place where I say no more now because I can't afford not to, I guess is a way. I have to now say, no, I'm not going to go through this. Like when I see red flags, that's from another talk that I did. If you go on WordPress.tv and look up my name, Greg Douglas, you'll see all my talks on there. So if anybody's interested in seeing anything else I have to say about like setting healthy boundaries or any of that kind of stuff, I did a thing where I was like talking about recognizing red flags and when a client is like showing me, wow, this is going to be a bad person to work with. Anyways, but there's a time and a place to just say yes and go for it. So I don't want to say everyone should say no a lot.
And to be completely honest, I'm earlier in my dip than where Greg is. He's further along that process. I'm more where everybody in this room is. I was sitting where all of you were a year ago. Okay? And basically I started talking with Greg and we decided to co-organize the meetup and we had a bunch of good talks. But the thing to remember is no matter where you are in your own, whether you call it a journey or you're never done, okay? And there's always somebody better than you and you just do the best you can where you are in your personal journey.
Okay, so I just want to get to a few more questions. Trista, go ahead.
It was just a small one. I had to go along with what she was saying, that you were saying about keeping time as a priority. Is that something, because I'm writing a proposal now, and what I'm noticing is that time, let's jump on Skype and talk about this, let's have a touch base on things can really add up. So is that something that you specifically spec out in the estimate? Like you get this amount of time, if
Yes.
it goes over that, it's going to be my hourly charge? Like,
Yes, I watch everything. Yeah, I think about, I'm going to keep this phone call or this Skype call to this amount of time. And I won't always put the specific amount of time like written as a deliverable in the proposal, but it'll be talked about at the very least. You know, we have, these are the deliverables for your project. I project that we're going to have 2 meetings through this process here. We're going to have a check-in here and a check-in here, and then we'll get together one more time at the end of the project. In between there, I'll be available through email, but you know, give me up to 24 hours to get back to you. I will get back to you, you know. I try to like make that a part of that conversation. But really, as you're going through the dip, and as you're going through this process of growing yourself and being a generalist in WordPress, track your time now. Start tracking, start thinking about how you're spending your time now, because that's going to affect the next bid you do a month from now or 2 months from now. You're going to be able to think, how have I been spending my time? And you can literally look at your calendar and see visually. I'll color code my projects or color code my work, or you know, gym time, work time, work time, work time, work time, meal time, work time. You want to have that all visually in your calendar and written out which clients you're working with, because then you can start to say, how much time did I spend really on that project? Not how much time do I estimate I did, really what did I do? Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to go over here really quick. So Julian.
I'm curious about this. I have a hard time with clients not wanting to read anything.
You're the first one that's ever happened to.
I think it's really important to basically get everything down in emails. It's an essential point. Clients ask you important questions that are going to relate to the bottom line ultimately. You want to get that down so that there's a reference, so that you can point back to something. Even if they don't read it, you've still got it down. You can say, I told you about that. But you want the clients to be reading this stuff. It's stuff that's important for their bottom line. It's stuff that they are going to be maybe asking you again. Do you have any suggestions about encouraging clients to participate in the process?
I have a really good suggestion for that. So the question is, or the thought process is, it's good to have a trail of emails, and it's good to kind of have things in writing so you can refer back to them. But if the client doesn't even read the emails, or they don't even read their proposal fully, how do we walk that path? Okay, so this is what I do. I will, in many cases, especially on larger client projects, not always on the smaller client projects, but I've got a plan for that too. So I'm going to talk about it from 2 different angles. First one is big project clients. I will sit down in the first meeting with the client, and I will read everything in the proposal 1 page at a time, and I'll just flip the pages. We'll all have a copy sitting around a table, and we'll all flip each page together, and I'll read everything. And I'll answer questions on every point. That's the only way I get them to read the whole thing. And then the small business clients, what I do is I walk them through something called Express. It's a small product package I have for small businesses. If you guys go to thisisexpress.com, you'll see the product package. And what I'm able to do, even on the phone with them, is I'm able to define visually. It's almost like, hey, if I'm going to buy a box of cereal and I'm in the grocery store aisle, I know exactly what I'm getting in that cereal box because it's all right there, right in front of me in 3D, and I can hold it and spin it in space. Well, you want to be able to do the same thing with your website design. You want to be able to show them, here's my out-of-the-box, template-based website solution for your small business. Here's all the add-ons that are potential for your small business. We can configure all these things. So I'll have a starting baseline for the small 5-page website, and you can see, oops. I have a little visual of it. It's almost as if we were holding the box of cereal. And I'll say, yes, we're keeping the budget small, but all you're getting is 5 pages. And it's built on a theme that I've already built a bunch of websites on, and I already have CSS written in a child theme. It's already set aside, ready to go. I go, click, click, click. You know, it's like, ding, ding, ding. Your website's up and running, and you got a 5-page website. Yes, I did a nice little color scheme for you, and yes, I did a cool little hero graphic for you. But other than that, it's all locked down. Deliverables are locked down. So they see it, then when I send them the proposal, whether they read it or not, you know, it's like, it literally reflects this very clearly.
So what I'm getting from that is even if I'm doing a custom site for someone, it's good for me to have examples of the process and,
Yes.
and things I've done before to show them, that give them a visual cue on.
Yeah, it's like, we're gonna do this kind of project for you, for this kind of budget. And if you can have that conversation even over the phone with them, where you're like, I just want you to go over to my website at blah, blah, blah.com, and I want you to click on my last project, it was this one. I wanna do something in this vein. It's gonna be your unique thing, and we'll do your branding, but it's gonna be in this, for this size website, for this amount of customization, it's gonna be this budget. And it's a good way to get that conversation going even before you write a proposal.
And from Greg's perspective there, he's already got the wireframes, he's done a lot of that prepackaged development phase long ago, and he's just implementing.
Well, and I want to add to that. In this case, there would be no design phase. So the Express Small Business Website Solution, I described to them, you're getting my template that I've already written a cascading style sheet for. I've already done the child theme. And what you're getting is you're getting me building this for you really fast, like in a matter of a week or two. And it's going up. And that's that. So it's kind of buckled down real tight, as if we were like Squarespace or something, right? So I've got that solution, but then I've got the more custom one, right? So if you go to premiuminteractive.com, you click on my work, you can see projects that scale up really big. But that's a different story. That's not this product. So this is the Express Small Business Website Solution. We keep it a small little package tailored directly to you. And really, what I tell people, and I did this in another talk that's on WordPress.tv as well, I tell people, you want to think about what your competency is. Mine is doing fantastic design, so I came up with a way that played to my strength to do cool little small business websites with a little bit of custom design, but not a lot of custom design. I'm limiting their choices of what they can do randomly, right? That keeps the budget under control. It's when things get random. It's when things go crazy. It's when Skull Creek comes out of nowhere because all of a sudden they want 3 rounds of revisions on the design phase, and you're like, how did I get here? I'm swimming in this. That's a part of going through the dip. This is what the dip did to me. I came out the other side with a template for small businesses, and then I have the custom solution for the people that want to go big budget. You had a question. Okay, all right. Okay, Dave?
I have a little bit of a tip. I'm in the database universe, and we're always asked to do things, and then same exact problem. Hey, can you take a look at this, Mr. Professional, and tell us what, the work, you like it? And everybody goes, oh yeah, it's fine. 1 second. So I asked a seasoned professional, what do you do? And he goes, here's the answer. You get a champion in the company, somebody that's on your side, who may even assign somebody to work with you. And the magic thing is called a pencil and paper. And you write out what you did, and they say, yeah, I looked at it. And you go, oh good, sign here that you approve of it, and that stops the whole thing. And they go, oh, wait a minute, I better look at this. That's what gets them to do it.
Yeah, and on that subject, and I think the subject of having things signed is a really good, thank you for bringing that up. The tool that I use right now that I really like, I've used several of them. I've used Adobe Echo Sign, that allows you to do contracts and you get them electronically signed, that's cool. I've used Quote Robot, but I don't think that had signing. They might have it now, but I moved away from that tool a little bit ago. Now I use BidSketch. BidSketch does electronic signing. So what I'm able to do is put everything in my contract, or put it in the proposal, and you can even add contract elements at the end of it that kind of help, kind of police that a little bit, that the Skull Creek. And then they have to sign it electronically. And then that electronic signing does help them to review it a little more. But I will say I still like to go over, like when I'm on the phone with them, I'll at least go through the deliverables. There's a bunch of stuff in there, but I will make sure every single client at least knows that deliverable section. This is what we're doing. And
signature holds up in court.
And the signature holds up in court, but you don't ever want to get to the point where it gets litigious. You just don't want to, you want to keep things, you want to keep your clients and your projects happy and healthy and good. I mean, the reputation down the road. So yes, of course, it does hold up in court.
That's not why I said that. I just said it because nobody wants to look at anything for more than 10 seconds.
Right. But bringing it up.
They won't sign it until they look at it.
That's true. Good point.
That's my only point.
Yeah.
We're
I like
gonna
that.
do one more question.
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah.
This is a quickie.
Yeah.
For your bigger projects, I looked at the project board. Are you like a 3 different design kind of designer, or just one design and you just keep honing in?
I charge more for 3 different designs. So if I leave it up to them in that case. I have done it before where I haven't even talked about it, and I just did 1 design. So I didn't even bring it up, and if they brought it up, I would have said, well, that would be, that's going to be additional hours of back and forth, and then we're going to probably end up taking 2 of the 3 designs and morphing and melding them in some way, and that's going to be more time and work, and I might even propose billing that at an hourly rate, okay? So I might say, let's go ahead and really have a nice long exploratory 3 comp, but I oftentimes will try to go with the 1 bullet solution, and the reason why I say that is this. You start the discovery and design phase talking about user experience, talking about the goals of how they want people to take action on a large website, like just the big ones, not this Express one, but the other one. I don't even want to look at that. So if we're going to look at a larger project, then we've already done stuff like wireframes. We've already done things like flowchart. We've already done things like what behavior do we want your client to take on the website. So when it gets to the UI, it's like we've already talked about their color scheme and their logo. So it becomes almost like a nice, easy kind of, we're stepping right into 1 solution, and I can keep it in that space. But I will offer the other solution, it just takes a lot more time. I see 3 comps as like a lot of extra work. Which is good, it's like 3 sites, yeah, it's good, it's, let's go ahead and walk that path, but understand that it's gonna take us both a lot more time. You approving it, the client, me designing it, and us having that back and forth over and over and over again. Basically what I'm trying to do in this season of my business is save myself from the hell of, feeling like my profits are dwindling on every project. I got into another one of these. I don't know, it's meandering and I can't control it. The client is now pulling me around on a chain. And I don't mean that in like clients. I mean that like, I was the one that created that monster to begin with. I need to control that from the very beginning if I want to expect a different result. Client can't read my mind, or yours, or anyone else. Well, maybe they can, if they're psychic. No, I'm joking. If you're talking to the client early on, you want to set that expectation of, these are the deliverables, very specifically what I'm going to offer, and this is what I'm going to charge for those deliverables. That way, throughout the whole process, you're in control of your business, and this is a part of where that whole self-esteem comes from. When we're looking in the mirror and we're doing that really silly exercise I shared with you, doing that every day, you start to esteem yourself. You start to esteem your own business more naturally. And this allows you to kind of hold your ground when it's important, when we've got to protect our time. Benno.
I just wanted to say, rather than you making 3 designs, you can ask the client to show you 3 websites they like. And
I like that solution.
Conclusions.
Yeah, I always ask for design role models.
Yeah. Show me something
Always.
you really like, and then you sort of get a feel where they're at and what they like.
And that they don't like, that's also very...
Right.
Yeah, what they don't like.
Yeah,
another question.
It's almost easier for them to come up with, like, I hate this, I hate that, good.
And I use design questionnaires at the beginning on really large projects like this one here. I didn't put it in this one, but I have another one that I have a design questionnaire that if you go to Premium Interactive/Roundabout, you can see a whole nother one of these for a different client. And that was a real client. And that one, I have a design questionnaire, and you can see one of the questions I ask at the very end of my design questionnaire is, if your brand, if we were going to make a movie about your brand story, what genre would your story be told in? It's a fun question to get people thinking outside of their normal pattern of thought about their business and how to tell that story. And you begin to romanticize your own story. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I just gave that to you for free. That's a really good one. That's it. That's the last question. We're going to be done. Okay, everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. Now, I also want to say, thank you for bearing with me during that talk. We'll be hanging around here a little bit, get to know the people around here, talk to Ed or Dave if you are interested in one of their opportunities. I also want to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We work for this awesome location. We're very happy to have that. Louis Ryan Bowl, the WP All Import, who provided the great food tonight. We say it's all you all eat, that's awesome. And then SiteGround for hosting, and check that out for the swag and all that good stuff. If you want any more socks and we've run out, I have more socks back there in the box. Please ask me. I want to make sure you get socks. And, you know, if I haven't met you, you know, meet me after this thing's over. And thanks for coming out, you guys. Next month, just so you know, is going to be part 2 in the Artisan Series. And we're going to be focusing on the developer. And that's going to be, that talk's going to be given by Roy Sivan, who is an awesome developer and WordPress community contributor. So, you know, come out next month. Check it out. All right, guys, have a great month. See ya.